As a kid, all a nigga wanna have was a Burberry scarf and $3 in my pocket. Instead I got beat with a switch, but I don't give a fuck, but it's on my body. Scars all up on me, but I run around from everybody. Life lesson learned, I better learn from this bitch, nobody. She pushed me around, she didn't give no motherfucks about it. She broke my heart 3 times, but I ain't getting...
The Indianapolis Colts are going to be a 7.5-point favorite at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, last week, it was tough sledding for Joe Burrow and the Bengals last week as they got crushed by the Baltimore Ravens 27-3. And when I say crush, I mean that literally. I mean, Joe Burrow got sacked 7 times against Baltimore. And I watched every single Cincinnati Bengals game because I have Joe Burrow as my QB1 on fantasy football. And I mean, that pretty much has to be the worst performance Cincinnati has had offensively the whole entire season. I mean, what could have went wrong went all wrong, totally wrong against Baltimore last week, man, because Joe Burrow was getting crushed. He had a couple of fumbles. I mean, the defense, everything just went wrong for Cincinnati. Now, for the Indianapolis Colts, you were defeated 32-23 by the Cleveland Browns. And the reason why the Colts lost that game was because Phillip Rivers, and I've been saying this ever since week 1 of the NFL season, that if the Colts have to rely on Phillip Rivers to win the game for them and they don't have the run game going, their likelihood of winning isn't going to be all that great. Because I said, listen, as long as Indianapolis is running the football and keeping the ball out of Phillip Rivers' hands, they're going to be able to win a lot of games. But if you have to rely on Phillip Rivers to win the game for you and he has to throw the ball more than 30 times, your likelihood of winning goes down the drain, because with Phillip Rivers, when you put the ball in his hands and you ask him to win the game for you, he's going to turn the football over. And we saw that last week. He threw 2 interceptions. And the Indianapolis Colts only had 68 rushing yards as a team. So, the Colts were not able to run the football. Phillip Rivers had to win the game for the Colts, and the Colts lost. So, the bright side is for the Indianapolis Colts, you're facing the Cincinnati Bengals defense that was allowing 159 rushing yards per game, which is 29th in the NFL. So you shouldn't struggle running the football or shouldn't have that much trouble running the football against the Cincinnati Bengals like you did against Cleveland, because Cincinnati just isn't really good against the run. Their linebackers aren't great, and their defensive line, although they do have talent on the defensive line, DJ Reader's not going to be playing, so that is a big loss. He's one of the best run stoppers in the NFL. So for the Indianapolis Colts, you should have a pretty good chance or a pretty good game when it comes to running the football. Now, for the Cincinnati Bengals, they're also 23rd in the NFL in takeaways as well. So for the Colts, this is a favorable matchup for you offensively. And for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, on the bright side is you're facing the Colts defense that, for the most part, has played fairly well. I'll give them credit. Now, I'm still not completely sold on the Indianapolis Colts defense because I feel like their stats are kind of boosted up by the opponents that they played. Like, they played against Chicago. Even though Chicago beat Tom Brady, the Chicago Bears offense still isn't all that great. They played against the New York Jets. So, it's easy for your defense to look good when you're playing against those teams that have struggling offenses. But, we saw what happened when they were playing against a good offense and the Cleveland Browns. So, hey, if the Bengals are going to win this game, this is a favorable matchup. Now, Indianapolis secondary has been a lot better than what I expected it to be. Xavier Rhodes has kind of had like a bounce back year of sorts. And for Joe Burrow, this is more of a favorable matchup this week against this Colts defense than it is going against the Baltimore Ravens, because the Ravens just have a stacked defense all around. The Colts have a pretty good defense, but they don't have the same amount of talent that Baltimore possesses on the defense side of football. Not trying to offend Indianapolis Colts fans, but that is the truth. The Ravens have more talented players on defense than you. I don't think nobody should get upset by that. But for Joe Burrow, it all comes down to the fact that, is he going to have any time to throw the football? Because I know a lot of people talk about how Joe Burrow doesn't try to throw the football down the field all that often. And you can't really blame the guy. Because, I mean, the offensive line isn't even giving him that much time to throw the football. And the fact that Cincinnati couldn't run the football last week didn't help as well. So, I mean, for Cincinnati to win this game, I mean, the offensive line has to play well. Because you're facing a pretty good defensive line. Like, the Indianapolis Colts have some really talented guys on the defensive line in their own right. So, I mean, for Cincinnati, if you allow 7 sacks again this week, your likelihood of winning isn't going to be all that high. And you're probably going to get smacked again like you did last week against Baltimore if that happens. So, I mean, for Joe Burrow, I mean, can my guy get some protection out there? Help my guy out. Like, can we please bench Bobby Hart? I'm not a Bengals fan, but I'm just begging. For Joe Burrow's sake, bench Bobby Hart. Bobby Hart should not be starting. He is the worst offensive tackle in the NFL. Like, a lot of Bengals fans keep coming at me saying we have no choice but to start Bobby Hart because he's all that we have. You're trying to tell me out of all the free agent offensive tackles available out there, you don't think any one of those guys could perform better than Bobby Hart? Like, Bobby Hart is single-handedly getting Joe Burrow killed back there. And not only him, but the entire Cincinnati Bengals offensive line. But he happens to just be the worst of the bunch. So, I mean, please, Cincinnati, do something good and try to save Joe Burrow. Like, can my guy at least get 3 seconds to throw the football? Because he's not even getting that. He didn't even get that against Baltimore. So, I mean, Cincinnati, I mean, they have a pretty good group of wide receivers. We don't know what's going on with A.J. Green because, once again, as expected, he's not healthy. So, I mean, Cincinnati has to be able to run the football. And, I mean, you have to be able to run the football because the run game is important because then the team just won't have to worry about just having to key in on trying to stop the pass. Okay, they'll have to play both the run and the pass. Like what you did against Jacksonville. Jacksonville didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to stop the run, and they didn't know how to stop the pass neither. So, I mean, Cincinnati has to try to replicate that performance that they had against Jacksonville, which is going to be easier said than done because Indianapolis has a significantly better defense than Jacksonville. So, I mean, for Cincinnati, man, your chances of winning this game, I mean, I think you have a better chance of winning this game than you do against Baltimore. But I'm still siding with the Colts to win this game. I think the Colts should be able to win this game because the Colts are going to be able to run the football. Cincinnati's run defense is terrible. The 29th in the NFL in rushing yards per game allowed 159. And I mean, I think this is a game that Jonathan Taylor and Indianapolis Colts probably could go for at least 150 or at least 200 rushing yards as a team in this game. And for the Bengals, man, I mean, I think that they're going to have a better showing offensively than they did last week. I don't think they're going to put up 3 points against the Colts, but I just think that the Colts are just a way better team than the Cincinnati Bengals. Will Cincinnati be able to pull off the upset? I mean, I think it's possible if they're able to stop the run, but I mean, they haven't really been able to stop the run all this season. So, I mean, I got to take Indianapolis to get the victory here. I'm taking Indianapolis 24-17 is my final score prediction in this game. I'm taking the Colts. I'm hoping that Joe Burrow and Cincinnati can pull off the upset because I have Joe Burrow as my QB1. I don't really trust Justin Herbert, but it looks like I might have to start. Well, I can't even start Justin Herbert this week because I believe that the Chargers have a bye. So, I mean, I have Joe Burrow needs to have a good game. I'm rooting for the Bengals to win this game. I'm rooting for Joe Burrow to have a good performance because I'm trying to win my fantasy game this week because right now I'm 1-3-1. So, I think it's really important for Cincinnati to get this win because if they win, they'll be 2-3-1. That'll be a good step in the right direction. And if they lose, I mean, it'll just be another loss. They'll be 1-4-1. So I think Cincinnati needs this from a confidence standpoint. And I mean, I think the Colts will win this game, but I do think this is a game that Cincinnati does have a pretty above average chance of pulling off the upset.